Hey, what's up guys? Tasty Meat Chunks here, and today we've got a video that would make Read How Long Do You Want It Richards blush. Because today we're going to be breaking down how to play every single member of the Fantastic Four.
Amazing.
Say that again? Originally this was going to be a video about how to play the Thing, but here's the thing. He kind of sucks unless he's playing with the right comp. Believe it or not, that comp is the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four in this game are really funny because almost all of them are very niche characters. Aside from Invisible Woman and Human Torch, which is why I'm going to go a little bit more in detail on those two characters specifically, but characters like Mr. Fantastic have a lot of tech that separates them from the other characters in the game and is a very situational pick. So altogether, they do really make a very good team comp. But you kind of need to be a specialist or at least very competent in each one of them to get the value of the whole set, at least to get any value out of the Thing. So we're going to go through each of them one by one. There are going to be time codes in the description so you can skip to the part that you want for the character you are looking for, so that this is an all-encompassing video so you can send this to your friends to do the Fantastic Four team up so that you can absolutely dominate your ranked games and have some fantastic matches.
Yo, look at my medals.
Look at my medals. We're opening on the Thing because I think the Thing is the most obvious and simple of the characters to explain, so we can do this pretty quick. The Thing has a passive that makes him immune to all knockback. His primary attack is this 1-2 jab combo. His secondary attack is a charge punch. This can go through multiple opponents, but it has lower DPS than just sort of the main punches, unless you're hitting multiple targets at the same time, in which case the Haymaker Punch is going to be better. Your core loop on the Thing is going to center around his E and his Shift. His E is Embattled Leap. It lets you jump to a teammate, giving them a defensive bonus, as well as yourself. Only works on teammates, it does not work on enemies. You can use this to disengage from a fight or to get in position to engage on a fight and help your team secure picks. This is the only ability that the Thing has by himself that gives him damage mitigation. That's right, you have no shields, no active abilities, nothing that increases your survivability. Except when you press your Shift, you do get access to bonus health. So that 700 health bar you have is going to quickly evaporate if you do not have the Invisible Woman team up, which gives you access to an extra bit of shields, which, as you can see, increases your survivability. This plus stacking your defensive bonuses make you effectively immortal in the front line. Now we got two more abilities to cover, so we're going to go through them and explain what they do. First of these is his Shift, his Yancey Street Charge. This bounces opponents up in the air, and at the end of it, slams for a bit of extra damage and grounds opponents, meaning that they cannot use their mobility options once they are hit with the big slam and stay in its radius. The radius lasts a while, so this can be really good for pinning down characters like Spider-Man's, Iron Fist, anyone slippery that is on your backline, or supports in the front line that would usually use mobility to escape. It also pairs really well with things that do a lot of AoE damage. Johnny Storm. And we'll get to that later. And your final ability is going to look very similar to you Overwatch players. Clobber in Time, his ult that stuns enemies and bounces them up instead of down. And I know some of you might have a question. Wait, but if you use something like Clobber in Time on the Thing and say a Thing ditto, what happens? Because he can't get booped up in the air. Well, the Thing has boop immunity. He does not have CC immunity, which means he just stays here stunned and on the ground instead of in the air. Same thing goes with any ults or stuns, unless you're using his charge, which makes him unstoppable, meaning that if I were to get ulted in this, I would keep on sprinting. So save that cooldown if you know there's a big CC like an Eye of Agamotto, Clobber in Time, or Groot ult coming your way. His general playstyle is going to be a lot of cover and sort of choke hugging. So let's say this was a choke to get to a point. You want to kind of hang around the corners here and just sort of be in a movable brick shithouse because that's what you are. Going for things like Haymaker Punches so that you don't stand in the front line sustaining too long because you will melt since you don't have much access to your shields. Waiting for a teammate to get close so you can engage off of them. Then, as a team, rushing down one character all at once. Continuing that process till their team is dead. Rinse, repeat, Thing. Because you're going to want to be hugging corners and sort of opening up with things like Haymaker Punches, you can get access to really the only combo I've found for the Thing, which is by no means like a good one-shot combo, but it is good at doing a lot of damage to a lot of targets at once. That's going to be charging up your right click, hitting some punches, going for your charge to hit as many things as possible, and ending with the grounded damage so that you can keep the brawl going. Then if you need to, disengaging to your support line or another player to survive.
So quick side note, I forgot to mention about his jump. It doesn't have a range cap to it. It just has a range cap to initiate it, which means you can do silly shit like this.
Let's talk matchups. The Thing wants to play Rush. This means that he does not want to play with a lot of poke-heavy characters, things like Hellas, Hawkeyes, characters that don't want to stay in the fight, characters with a defined backline or flanks that they want to go on. No, he's looking for frontline pressure. He's looking for a team to push with him, and he's looking for a team that brawls with him. Not a team that is going to play the long sight lines, not a team that's going to play the flanks, not a team that wants to get in and out quickly. Characters like Wolverine, Iron Fist, Johnny Storm, Mr. Fantastic, Magic, to an extent Psylocke, Moon Knight, can all do pretty good in a close range brawl, or at least bring things to the table that support them for the DPS category. For tanks, it's a bit more up in the air. I could see a character like Magneto playing strong with him from the backline supporting him if you want to do a bit more of a hybrid comp, but I feel like you're going to get a lot more success pairing him up with characters like Hulk for the mobility, Thor for the sustain and brawl abilities, or a character like Doctor Strange if you want to just hold a choke like a menace. Same thing goes with Groot. This is where the important decision of playing the Thing comes in, and this can change game to game, this can change point to point. How are we playing the Thing? Are we playing him Rush? Are we playing him Brawl? If we're playing him Brawl, that means we're going to be a bit more sustain focused, a bit more holding focused, a bit less mobility focused. Our team is going to want to be a brick shithouse wall like the Thing that is just going to stand on the point or the choke and be immovable and slowly gain our progress that way. If we're going to run a bit more of a rush comp, we're probably going to take advantage of characters like Storm for her speed boost, or I mean maybe Jeff Bubbles. I don't know. That character sucks. And we're going to use this speed to rush into their team and pick them off one by one. The Thing is going to play best with a group that wants to do the same stuff he does. Staying on the front line, taking big long fights, and playing up close and personal. His biggest weaknesses are just simply the fact that he doesn't bring a lot to the table to keep himself alive, and he is extremely team dependent, especially with the Fantastic Four, to make up for his personal weaknesses as a pick.
Reed, could you stretch down to the deli and give me a groovy with a glob of poop?
Hey Johnny, can you take the Fantastica and pick up a quarter club of poop?
Johnny, fly on down to the deli for me.
Next up, let's talk about Johnny Storm. Johnny Storm is a damage and area denial demon. What he brings to the table to help with this team up is that most of the other Fantastic Four members, aside from him and ironically his sister, don't have the best damage output in terms of single target burst damage. So he continues that fact by having both crazy single target burst damage and having absolutely insane area denial capabilities as well. This means he is bringing both burst damage and damage over time to a team comp that really needs it, but it also means if you are playing him in the Fantastic Four comp, they are very reliant on you to be the one initiating fights and getting picks. Let's break down our abilities and our team ups real quick. Our primary fire is pretty simple, but it is a shotgun projectile. This means at range with moving targets, it's going to be a lot harder to get that consistent damage out. And while it does technically have unlimited ammo, it still is on a resource. So if you just keep holding this button down, you will eventually run out and slow down. Meaning it's better to sort of weave in this damage rather than hold down the button the whole time. While you're weaving in this damage, it's going to be good to sort of go for things like your right click or your blazing blast. This does some pretty decent damage, but in combination with your primary fire makes it a pretty solid bet for doing a lot of damage to one target. It also, while being a slow moving projectile, does do a decent amount of damage on hit, which means when you are fighting a ranged target, hitting the target with it is not a bad idea when your main damage has fallen off. If I'm trying to kill someone this far away, I mean, I technically could if I hit all these shots, but in a game that's going to be a lot more applicable. If I weave in shots with my secondary fire, I kill them much faster. So I don't want to hear people saying Johnny Storm doesn't have range. He does, but he's more of a demon up close. His next ability we're going to talk about is something that I want you to rebind for the sake of your poor fingers. You might notice that Johnny, like a lot of the other aerial characters, is pretty slow when he's in midair. But that's actually a lie. He's insanely fast because, much like a character like Captain America, you can animation cancel and get an extra speed boost at all times if you stay holding down your sprint button, meaning that you get access to both crazy movement options and max damage with no reduction to either of their uptime. Yeah, that whole time that I was yapping and doing that, I was barely losing any sprint meter or fire meter. Put that in combination with the rest of our kit and you become extremely hard to hit while doing insane damage. If you want to know how to animation cancel this, you want to hold down the sprint key and then tap your fire button. It'll make you just confusing enough to hit that if you have good strafe patterns, you will be a demon for the other team to deal with. It's not quite as fast as characters like Iron Man, but it still is pretty quick. But it's not your best tool for rotating back to a fight or initiating a fight. That's going to, again, be your right click. Johnny Storm, like a lot of characters in this game, is built entirely around his kit and the synergy between the abilities. So when his right click is burning things, you can initiate with your F or Flaming Meteor to do a slam for increased damage that can be used in a lot of different ways. It can be used to retreat a fight when things get sour. It can be used to initiate a fight. And it can be used while you're fighting someone for a quick burst damage or cleanup. But that's not all, because you can synergize this with the rest of your kit when making things with your E. Your E or Pyro Prison is built again off of the right clicks, which is why I want you to be weaving in the right clicks with the rest of your damage. Few shots, drop down a pillar, few shots, drop down a pillar, few shots, drop down a pillar, few shots, drop down a pillar. Oh, and now we've captured their whole team. We can initiate with our slam, and we get so much damage out. Your ability to combo all of these abilities together is going to be what makes Johnny Storm so interesting. Our final thing that we need to talk about with the Human Torch is his ultimate. His ultimate gives him access to basically infinite of these pillars, infinite sprint, and does a lot of damage to single targets, but in practice isn't going to actually be that strong of an ultimate. The main thing that it brings to the table is with the Storm team up. This means that when Storm is part of your team, you can supercharge her ultimate, or if she goes over any of your flame tornadoes, it will make it even stronger. And again, he has the same team up with Invisible Woman where he gets access to shields. You already saw that with Ben Grimm. I'm sure you can understand what it will be on him. Pop the shields before you dive in. That's all I'm saying. So now that we've broken down his kit and how he works, let's talk about team-ups and how to play him in terms of your gameplay. The Human Torch kind of has two modes. He's got his longer range setup phase where he's playing a bit more at range, a bit more safe, putting down things like burns on stationary targets, things like the Thing or snipers, flush them out of positions. Punisher turret is a really good target for your right click, and just in general, wanting to keep the space. This is what you're doing before your team engages. Now, if you're playing full Fantastic Four comp, it's probably on you when to engage, especially since you are the character that has the infinite range engage as long as you have height. Dive onto your right clicks to do that big explosion damage, right? I would encourage not taking any of these up close and personal fights unless you have a cage up, but that's not really a guaranteed rule. You can also set up the cage before the fight starts to get a lot of important resources out, and then dive with your team later to start the brawl phase, where you're going to play up close and personal with the rest of your team and all of the shields you're getting from Invisible Woman, or all of the sustain you're getting from your support lineup, to really swing the tide in your favor. The Human Torch also brings a lot of just sort of neutral value to the game. If you don't know what I mean by this, I mean he brings a lot of value on his own. He has crazy high damage numbers, he has crazy consistent damage numbers, he's hard to deal with, he's hard to clear, he has strong team-ups, and he's not the problem in those strong team-ups. Storm has basically a 100% ban rate. So you're not going to be seeing the Johnny Storm combo much in comp, and even when Storm isn't banned, there are so many other characters that synergize with her well that I don't think the Human Torch is going to be the top of the ban list for a very long time. But he doesn't really need that, because while his ultimate is kind of weak on its own, it's really strong at area denial like the rest of his kit. So building it off of an already sort of cage that you built with your fire, and then ending it with Supernova or Firestorm lets your team clean up lots and lots of picks. Because of this, I think the Human Torch is a very versatile character, but he's still niche in terms of you need to understand area denial very well. Part of the reason why I like him so much is because I'm a tank player. I feel like I get area denial pretty well. So I can put the area denial abilities on the threats that I want to move, that I want to leave. I can shut down the point when I know things are getting dicey. And aside from that, I can be a nuisance that doesn't die. Torch is all about pressure, and the better you build around that pressure, the better he'll be. You might notice that usually I spend this time talking about what characters this person pairs best with. He pairs really good with the Fantastic Four, but they need him more than he needs them. Kind of ironic if we're talking about Johnny Storm here. He kind of works with most comps I've played him in. In fact, when I was looking at the stat breakdown, he is my highest KOs per 10 across all of my characters. And these aren't just like tickle KOs per 10, like a character like Scarlet Witch might get. No, I'm talking like full-blown team wipes that are happening because of your abilities. The damage he brings to the table is not negligible. It is very real and very scary. And if you're good at timing your ability usage, you will be getting 3-4 kills every fight just off of your cage usage and how well you set up. And next up on the list is Invisible Woman. I'm going to keep things brief. I have a much more detailed video of Invisible Woman on my page. But to start things off with a slight correction. When I made that video, Invisible Woman had just launched for the game, and I said that her ultimate did not do as much healing as things like Luna Snow or Cloak and Dagger ults. While this is technically true, her ult is by far the most survivable of those ults when it comes to dealing with one-shot abilities that kill the ulting player. Invisible Woman is a close-range support. Her primary fire goes through targets and goes forward and back, meaning that it can heal and do damage at the same time. Her right click is a shield, it has 300 health, and it heals any targets near it. She has an insanely short reload, which means she is always going to be doing something and rarely, if ever, be caught out without resources. And even when she is reloading, she can put up the shield to take the pressure off so that she literally has no downtime. Her shift ability is a damage over time, but she can combo this with the rest of her kit to do insane amounts of damage, or defensively if a character like Spider-Man or someone jumps on her to sort of drop this down and start shooting or pull them back in, killing them, to set up or support an attack by manually detonating the ability mid-air so it can maximize its coverage and damage, get around things like shields, and with her boop ability that lets her do silly shit like this.
Booped her off the map.
Goat.
Allowing her to both pull in enemies to be used for things like kidnapping tanks or push out enemies, getting divers off your backline. Not that Susan really needs much help when they're diving her backline, because by herself she is pretty damn survivable, mostly just in terms of her damage output. Also because of the fact that she can jump away, turning invisible, which I would recommend quickly switching the direction that you jumped in, because it does give them a little bit of an indication where you were going, and sometimes enemies can guess where you will continue to go. Her ult is really strong, but here's the thing about it. You gotta be really cautious with where you put this because it doesn't move. This means that if you waste this ability, and let's say that's the point and we pop it here to save our team can't actually push to the point. We're still stuck in the choke because we used our ultimate poorly. And if I put this ult too far away and I'm trying to get to it and die, so it's a lot more tricky to use than a lot of the other support don't die ults in this game, because you gotta, first off, place it, second off, be smart with it, and third off, get it quickly. A few more things of note with this ultimate: it does make everything inside invisible to the other team, and it also works as a slow whenever something goes through it. This will get you a surprising amount of kills. We got one team up ability, and that is the Fantastic Four team up ability, which is Susan as the anchor gets nothing really. I mean, she does have her season bonus of the 15% healing bonus, but she has that all the time because she's an anchor. But she does give access to all of the other members to get a shield, which is very strong. If you have a Thing player and you are not playing Invisible Woman, or no one is, the Thing is going to do air because you are taking away a very important resource from them. Again, for the team up side of things, you can watch my other video on Invisible Woman to get a lot more detailed and more complicated breakdowns of the abilities and how they use, how they synergize. But much like Human Torch, Invisible Woman is one of 2 characters in this entire list that I think is a very strong solo pick. Meaning that unlike Mr. Fantastic and unlike the Thing, she is strong in almost every context. She can work well with a poke comp where she heavily shields off her longer range characters. She can work well in a brawl or a dive comp while she supports them much more closer with her sustain and damage. And she brings a high value defensive ult to the game that is hard to interrupt, hard to kill her through, and hard to kill anyone through because of the fact that she can still have her ridiculously high healing and damage output while having the full effect of it, assuming that it was placed right. I don't think it's a hot take to say that this is the strongest support ult in the game so far, because while things like Luna Snow and Cloak and Dagger ults are strong, a well-placed Invis ult is stronger because of the fact that she can stack heals while they cannot, especially since Cloak and Dagger got nerfed. She is also the strongest and easiest support to survive dives on if you understand her kit and save her cooldowns, meaning she is very strong into dive heavy teams. Makes sense, she's a brawl and rush character, they're supposed to be strong. Dropping her shift at her feet and pulling the enemy in or pushing them away shuts down a dive almost completely, and it's really easy to do, which means that characters like Spider-Mans or Black Panthers are honestly usually going to take their chances more with a competent Luna Snow or a competent Mantis over a competent Invisible Woman, because it's going to be harder to get her to waste important cooldowns like her ultimate, and it's easier for her to kill you with her abilities. So while she doesn't have the hard CC, her bounces, her boops, and her slows are enough to scare off a lot of those dive characters. And once you have a scared dive character, she's allowed to do whatever she wants. She does struggle a bit with characters that want to play extremely flank heavy or extremely dive heavy and never really slow down and let her join the fight, because of the fact that she doesn't have any increased mobility that she brings to the table. Yes, while her invisibility is nice and can let her do things like flank, assassinate, or set up uncontested, because of the fact that she doesn't actually have any mobility, if your team is trying to move really fast, that's going to be where she suffers because she can't keep up with that. And because of the fact that she is much more team support focused, she isn't the best character when it comes to things like stalling or holding a point. She's much more of a character that is good at fighting and good at healing and support. She doesn't have any crazy MOs that she brings to the table to make everyone invincible, or amazing things like a cleanse like Cloak and Dagger have that can cancel ultimates. She's going to play a very honest game, but a very technical game. And she can work well with most comps. She's really, really strong. Now, the final person on this list, Mr. Fantastic. Now, if you're like me, the first thing that you're going to do on Mr. Fantastic is start punching someone and go, wow, he does not do damage. But by the end of this video, you'll be doing stuff like this and absolutely destroying people. First thing to note about Mr. Fantastic is that his primary fire can basically be drag, meaning that while he doesn't have crazy damage on just his general 1-2 punch combo, unless you're putting in all of his other portions like you just saw into it, he can have pretty good cleave damage through multiple opponents, letting him really quickly farm stuff like his ultimate or just general damage, which synergizes again with the rest of the Fantastic Four. Wow, look at that, they synergize so well together. His next ability, Distended Grip, allows him to select up to 2 targets and pull them together for a bit of extra damage, or stack both on one target and pull them in. The second one is the one you're going to use the most because it's a really good way to extend your combo damage. Your shift ability is basically a big block or a counter. You absorb up to 300 damage, but it's not capped at 300, and then you shoot it back. This means that you can eat abilities that do way more than 300 damage, like say an Iron Man ult, and spit it right back at him and kill him. But for the most part, you're just going to kind of use this as a way to stall or to wait for your cooldowns to come back online. His E or flexible elongation, not elongaton flats, you dumbass.
Elongaton. From 2.5 meters to 5 meters. Additionally, flexible elongaton. Why are you guys all laughing? Okay. Elongation? Bro, where's the SH? Elongation? Yeah, but like, I think my wave sounds better and makes more sense.
Just kidding. Is an ability that allows him to jump 15 meters to either an enemy or an ally, giving himself and an ally shields, or giving himself shields while damaging an enemy. This is going to be your bread and butter for moving around the field to either initiate a fight, to follow up on a teammate jumping into a fight with your big mode, to clean up picks of someone running away, or to support a teammate by peeling, going to them to support them while they're being dove on or pressured out. Good usage of this is what makes a good or a great Mr. Fantastic player. And I mentioned this a few times, but I haven't really explained it. What the hell is big mode? Well, elastic strength or big mode is when you fill up the meter that is going on down here. So stuff like punches fill it up 5, but your other abilities fill it up a lot faster. Once it hits 100, you go big mode, gaining a ton of health, capping out at 950, making your punches do a lot more damage while still having the abilities to swing between them, but reducing their range just a tad. While you're in big mode, you cannot use any of your abilities, so if something like an ult that does a lot of damage goes off, not a great spot to be. But the other thing of note is that before using your ultimate, you should always try and enter big mode so that you have more survivability. While we're here, let's talk a little bit about his ult. Once you've gone big mode and activated your ultimate, you can bounce as many times as you hit things. Now, for the first 3 hits, it doesn't matter if you hit anything, but every hit after that needs to come in contact with a player. It does pretty decent damage now. Didn't used to. But it can do a lot of damage faster if you get someone in something like a doorway or a short room so that you bounce a lot faster, because it bounces based off when you hit the height of your jump. That's almost a Hulk's worth of damage that it just did. As for his team-ups, he just still has the same team-up as the rest of the Fantastic Four. He gets access to Sue's shields, which makes him even harder to kill. And now let's briefly talk about which heroes he plays best with, which ones he doesn't, and then just sort of general playstyle. Mr. Fantastic is a true Brawl character, but he's also a pretty strong anti-dive. I know that in general Brawl is anti-dive, but he's it in a bit of a different way. His ability to jump and support teammates through either the front line or the back line while also being able to initiate fights on enemies means that he has a very versatile kit, but he's also very team dependent. If your teammates are not in range for you to bounce to them and give them shields, you won't do much. If your teammates do not want to take these brawls with you, you won't be able to frontline much. If your teammates are not also pumping out insane amounts of damage, his kill potential still isn't that great. It's fine, but it's nothing to really prioritize picking him over a character like Hawkeye or Hela, Punisher, or Buck. He doesn't do crazy burst damage, he does crazy sustain damage, crazy AoE damage, crazy cleave damage, crazy peel damage, and he lives forever. But none of those things are crazy burst damage. So if he's playing with a comp that wants a lot from burst damage, he's going to find himself lacking a lot in their team comp. Unless he's doing his other main shtick, which is playing anti-dive. If he is playing mainly to peel and support teammates, it relies entirely on how much dive they're running. If they have crazy Spider-Man, Iron Fist, Black Panther players, he's going to be really good because he can shut them down by giving his teammates a massive shield instantly on top of their health bar, having abilities that are really easy to hit diving characters, and quickly jumping between the front and the back line to support on both ends. Mr. Fantastic is not the craziest of heroes in terms of stat farming or carry potential, but he is a really good sort of off-tank pick, which can help your team do great. Fantastic! And finally, we're going to talk about how to play the Fantastic Four together as a team and some closing thoughts on them. The biggest thing that comes to mind when it comes to the Fantastic Four is just simply, do you know how to play Brawl, and do you have 3 other people you are stacking with who know how to play Brawl? Also, do your 2 randoms know how to play Brawl? Because here's the thing about the Fantastic Four, and Rivals as a whole, I don't know if there has been a significant Brawl comp meta in Rivals so far.
We've mostly just seen either dive or poke since the game launched. The closest thing I can think to that is honestly back in the betas when Groot was really strong, but that's very different than the rush style of play that the Fantastic Four as a whole want to do. I think that it's really smart and fun game design that each member of the Fantastic Four brings something the others lack. The fact that Invisible Woman brings the team up that gives all of them more survivability and effectively unlocks the ability for both the Mr. Fantastic and the Thing to play as tanks. I think it's cool that the Human Torch brings burst damage to the team, which is something that most of the rest of them kinda lack, but also Invisible Woman brings that too. As a whole, each member of the team sort of builds on the last. The Thing struggles to get into fights and doesn't have a lot of damage mitigation abilities. So, Invisible Woman brings a shield for him and gives him a shield for himself, so that he can have those defensive abilities. Mr. Fantastic brings him overhealth from the form of fantastic backshots. Human Torch brings him increased burst damage and zone control and area denial abilities through his traps. Mr. Fantastic struggles a little bit when it comes to burst damage, and he needs a team that wants to play grouped together. Well, all of these characters have abilities that benefit from them playing close together. So he gets extreme value from his ability to bounce to and from all of his opponents and teammates that are low health and either kill them or save them. Invisible Woman brings great duel potential to the field, while also putting out insane healing numbers, insane damage numbers, good utility, and good survivability. Her downside being her mobility, which is where the Human Torch's team up with Storm comes in, because she gives the rest of them a speed boost that makes them able to do what they want to do faster. I am sure that if you got a demon stack of 5 or 6 players together to play the Fantastic Four plus 1 or 2 other characters, most likely Storm and, I don't know, maybe Mantis for stacking damage boosts on top, or Luna Snow for stacking an extra defensive ult with heals on top, you could see a lot of success. If you wanted to play a bit more slow and brawl compy, you could pair them up with a Cloak and Dagger and a Doctor Strange and have a bit of a Rein Zarya style meta going on there, where you're built around just sort of holding chokes forever, as opposed to the more jump in, jump out sort of gameplay that Storm wouldn't allow with her speed boost. Maybe this is even the pathway that lets Jeff get some play with his speed boost bubble. As a whole, this comp does very good when paired together. The Fantastic Four as a comp together is amazing. Fantastic even. The biggest drawbacks to trying to play any of these characters is the reason why I'm making a video about all 4 of them. They are a little bit too codependent, in my opinion. Now, Invisible Woman and Human Torch, as I have said, I think have contention to be solo picks. Invisible Woman, we already know she wasn't getting played because Mr. Fantastic was getting played in Season 1. She was getting played because she does insane healing, insane damage, and has good support ults and survivability on her end. Human Torch, I think, could be much the same thing. His area denial abilities will make him a solid counterpick to very sort of anchor-heavy or stall-heavy teams. Not to mention his team up with Storm, having a team up with one of the best characters in the game. I mean, come on. It's gonna be a solid chance to pick him. They also all have ults that combo pretty well together. I mean, Invisible Woman's ult is strong enough on its own, everybody knows that. But the Thing can combo with either Mr. Fantastic or Human Torch for a shitload of damage. While they're stunned, Human Torch can sort of box in a group of players to a spot where it's easier for Mr. Fantastic to hit his ult with his ult. And most of their ults are pretty cheap. Like, they build quick. So you're going to be seeing a lot of ults coming out of all of them. So even if they aren't the most impactful on their own, they get them regularly enough that the 1 to 2 picks they get can be the initiation they need to brawl. I think time will tell how strong these characters are. The fact that as a team they play better is really good for this game. It's good also to have an easy cheat code to say, hey, you want to play brawl like, I don't know, Reinhardt or Zarya or something? Get 4 people together on the Fantastic Four and then chuck in 1 or 2 other people playing whatever, and it'll be a solid team comp. Marvel Rivals' ability to craft team comps through the team up abilities is genius. And building the Fantastic Four to be these close range, brawly, rush heavy characters is awesome. But I do really want to warn people about the dangers of some of these characters as well. Mr. Fantastic being so reliant on having a brawly team or a rush-heavy team to play in means that he's going to really struggle if you try and become a Mr. Fantastic one-trick and you get paired up with a bunch of poke DPS or a bunch of dive DPS that you can't really get in and out of fights as well as. It's not impossible, it's just going to be more difficult. The thing without Invisible Woman is basically half a tank. It's like playing Cap without a shield or Hulk without a bubble. He's going to be a really tough time without having access to that shield ability, or teammates that want to play in the same range as him. The Human Torch is going to struggle from the same things all flyers struggle from. So if he doesn't have a coordinated team to help him clear out those hit scan DPS, he is not going to perform nearly as well as he could. Because of the fact that they are so team dependent, it also means that all of them kind of struggle without the team, aside from Invisible Woman because she's just that good. There's also the fact that this is a 4-person team comp built around the team up abilities, which means that more likely than not, I could see characters like the Thing being dropped for someone like Cap and Thor, but keeping the rest of the comp, or dropped for Groot, or dropped for Strange and Magneto. I feel like because of the fact that characters like The Thing and Mr. Fantastic don't really have as much solo carry potential, it's going to be harder to convince people to swap to the other 4 members if you aren't initially going in to play them. And because of that, it's going to be a lot harder for this Brawl comp to be made. Now, when the Hulk came out in the first beta of this game, there were a lot of people saying he was the worst tank in the game. Not much has changed from Hulk launch to Hulk now. People just got better at playing them. So I'm fully willing to admit that maybe the Thing just hasn't had his time to shine yet. Maybe he's missing a specific support that will come later that will make him better. Maybe because Storm has a 100% ban rate and comp, we're not seeing Rush. I don't know. There is a chance that that is what's holding this team comp back. And I do think they will probably become a bit of a fan favorite team comp, aside from maybe Human Torch, because in general, Rush is pretty damn popular when it comes to these games. The Fantastic Four are a pretty popular team, so I think you will have people wanting to play all of them. Just be careful about Human Torch and The Thing, as well as Invisible Woman, because they all can be a bit of a stat demon, getting lots and lots of picks, or lots and lots of damage, or lots and lots of damage mitt, or lots and lots of damage heal. This is where I have to remind you, the stats do not matter. If your team is not running Brawl and you're spending most of the time on things sitting in a corner just getting shot, all you're doing is charging up ultimates for their DPS and tank. If you're getting a ton of healing but there's no real value being played, your Invisible Woman pick probably isn't doing as much as it could. If you're getting a lot of damage on Human Torch but no picks, you aren't using his kit correctly, but also you're just charging up their support ults. Mr. Fantastic is the weird one because I don't think anybody is complaining that Mr. Fantastic is farming too many stats. But it's the inverse. He's gonna look like he's doing a lot less than he is because a lot of what he's doing is providing shields to teammates and providing follow-up on their plays. The pressure of DPS, the space holding of tanks, and the utility of supports are things that are a lot harder to measure than stat breakdown. So don't fall into the stat trap when it comes to playing these characters and absolutely throw your games. Study what you can do to make your character function better. Be flexible in who you are playing, be sneaky with your positioning, cook with your damage, and be hard as a rock for them to move you out of your spots. As Tasty Meat Chunks, have a good Monday.